Welcome to the Soulful Sustainable Living podcast with Haley and Makayla, your go-to podcast for holistic healing and conscious living hacks. Before we dive into today's episode, a quick message from our friends who help make this show possible.
Today's episode is brought to you by Pine Melon. Have you ever craved fresh, local produce from the farmer's market delivered straight to your door? Then you need to check out Pine Melon. Pine Melon is the easiest way to get high-quality, locally sourced food delivered right to your door all year long. They connect you with peak season fruits and veggies, artisan breads and cheeses, delicious local meats, and so much more. I have found so many of my go-to groceries and favorite foods, all from the local farmers, bakeries, and businesses here in Colorado. We also love that they use sustainable packaging, donate unsold food to local charities, and focus on supporting Colorado's vibrant agricultural community. Right now, our listeners can get $40 off their first order of $35 or more by using the link in the show notes. That's right, $40 off your first locally sourced grocery order with Pine Melon. Just click the link in the show notes to shop. Now back to the episode. Welcome back to the Soulful Sustainable Living podcast. Today we're welcoming Ilene Gold from Discover Peace Within to the podcast. She's a mental health professional and business owner dedicated to helping individuals, particularly women and mothers, find connection and healing through the inside out. As a certified therapist and yoga teacher, she specializes in treating anxiety, depression, grief, loss, postpartum support, all things motherhood, relationship issues, life changes, self-esteem, and confidence, young adulthood, ADHD, family issues, young professionals, boundary work, and people pleasing through a holistic approach. We're interviewing her today because of her unique holistic perspective in mental health. And here at Soulful Sustainable Living, we want to emphasize for you, our listeners, the importance of taking care of your mental health in order to achieve a more sustainable life. So please welcome Ilene Gold to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me this morning.
Yes, we're so excited. Well, tell us a little bit more about what you do, your offerings, and what makes you different in the market.
Sure. So like you all mentioned, I'm the owner of Discover Peace Within, and we are a mental health group practice led by women for women. We do work with men on an occasion through couples counseling. And if you're into feminist perspective and holistic health and healing, we'd be open to working with you as well. But primarily, we're all about supporting women. We're based in Denver, Colorado at the River Yoga Golden Triangle location down in downtown Denver. And we work with women, primarily young women, who are experiencing some sort of life transition or change. And I think that what really makes us separate and unique in the marketplace is our holistic approach to health and healing. And we're not just talking about mental health, but we're talking about sleep and how you're moving your body, what you're putting in your body, how you're spending your time, who you're spending your time with. And so I think that makes us a unique practice.
Yeah. Just for our listeners, can you speak to maybe someone who's new to therapy, who maybe there's a stigma that they have been around regarding seeking support in a therapy setting? So how would you explain therapy to them?
Yeah. So I think therapy, like you said, Makayla, therapy often has a stigma associated with it, like that there's something wrong with me or something, mental, or I should go be institutionalized or something. And I think that in the history of, mental health support in the United States, that often was the case, that really often very mentally ill people were the individuals who often got that kind of level of care and support. But over time, it has been just much more acceptable to be seeking support. I mean, we're not meant to exist in isolation. We're not meant to do things on our own. We're meant to be in community, and connection is one of our values at Discover Peace Within, as well as holistic health. So when we think about connecting as an individual to another individual, that's really what therapy is about. It's about having a safe place to talk about the things that you're struggling with and the ways that you want to grow and change. And it's a lot more, I think, even holistic in the way we think about therapy. It's not just for mentally ill individuals, but it's about how do we enrich our lives.
I love that. We all need therapy.
Yeah, I agree.
I think just talking, it is such a great place to start. Tell us a little bit more about what does therapy look like? Like,
Mhm.
what are the different types of therapy? When would they apply in certain situations? I know you cover such a broad range of topics. So do you use different therapy techniques for different concerns people are coming to address? That
Yeah,
sort of thing.
absolutely. And I'll speak less about me specifically, more maybe about my practice,
Yeah.
because I have a team of 6 other therapists, including myself, who are incredibly warm, skilled, nurturing, kind, empathetic human beings who are mothers themselves, because motherhood is a huge component of the type of support we offer at Discover Peace Within. And we have our last therapist who's on her way to motherhood. So Malia's due in January. So then she
tell
will
her
join.
congrats.
Yeah, I will. She'll join the ranks of mom therapist as well. So I would say the things you might want to think about for yourself, if as a listener you're sort of contemplating, is therapy for me? Would therapy be helpful? What is therapy even about? I would say if you're a human on this planet, therapy is probably a good thing for you.
Yeah.
And I think too, more and more we're talking about social emotional health and well-being. I have a 5.5-year-old daughter, and she comes home and talks to me all about her feelings. And that's because Miss Tabby at school is talking about social emotional health and well-being. Say if you're a human on this planet, you're likely going to benefit from therapy. So I think really when we're talking about the type of clientele we work with, it's a woman in her 20s or 30s going through some sort of life experience in terms of like transition or change. We also work with people who maybe have experienced a trauma or a loss in some way. And that can be moving. That can be losing a relationship, whether through, a breakup or a divorce or a loss of a loved one. We're talking about big identity transitions and changes like job change, career change, relationship change, and also all things motherhood. So the journey from contemplating pregnancy, we're seeing a lot more women come through our practice who are sort of asking, like, is motherhood something I even want? Knowing just how hard it has become to be a mom in our day and age, and as parents in general, and how stressful it can be and how isolating it can be. And so those are types of things that I would say, if you're thinking about those or wondering about those or going through those changes in your life, that would be a good indicator that therapy might be helpful for you.
Well, I would say the topic of motherhood, it's maiden or mother, the path to motherhood is also a journey for so many women. So that's an empowering conversation for either side.
Yes.
And it'll be interesting to see in the next coming decades where we are going with emotional health. There's movies now that are teaching kids about their emotions. One of my favorites is Inside Out. And it's interesting generationally. Every generation values therapy differently.
Yes.
So I recall talking to probably a boomer, so someone in the boomer generation saying, we didn't have movies like that when I was a kid, kind of alluding to like, why do we need that? I'm like, well, that's why we need that.
Right. Absolutely.
We were it wasn't culturally valued to be in touch with your whole human, right?
Yes.
An overemphasis on the physical and the mental, and not so much maybe emotional, social, spiritual components, which it sounds like your therapy practice does a great job at incorporating all of that.
Yeah, I would say absolutely. It's funny. I was just on the phone with my best friend who lives in Arizona, and she has a 5-year-old as well. And my daughter's 5.5. She went to this, sort of thrift store to get a bunch of new toys, and it's a trade-in kind of place. And so she traded in a bunch of books and she got some toys. And she's like, I picked up this 1990s vintage Barbie dream house locker. And it's like this, I mean, you could tell it's like something I played with as a kid. I was born in 1983. And so it's definitely something I played with as a kid. And she opens it up and it's like a mirror, a sticker of Ken's face, a exercise chart, a sticker that says get in shape. And my best friend was like, do I need to like change these stickers? Like, what are we valuing even in our toys, right? What are we valuing as a society, as a culture? What are the messages,
1000%.
especially as young women, that we're getting about what our value is, what our role is in society, what we're supposed to look like and act like and be like? And I was like, yes, you should take all of the stickers down. And you're going to need to find stickers that say you're strong and capable and smart. And so
such an interesting topic, though. I do find perhaps in your practice, women can come in and explore the difference between what society tells them they need to be and who they are through different transitions, because oftentimes in moments of change, we have the opportunity to struggle more if we're living up to what we think we should be doing versus what's actually happening in our life.
100%. And I think that that's where the people pleasing tendencies come through, is that we're really examining, what were you told you have to be? How is that modeled for you and your family? What messages have you internalized that are working for you now? And what do we maybe need to reauthor to help you feel more like you are moving through life in alignment with your own values? What even are your values?
Right.
Oftentimes clients come in and they say, I don't even know what I like,
Such a powerful way to live. We're doing it regardless. It's just whether we are bringing conscious awareness to that importance that we give certain things. So I think that kind of segues into something that we know about your practice. So being more passionate about the person environment theory. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is and how you use that in your practice?
Absolutely. So the person and environment theory is actually more of a social work framework. Many of our therapists on the team are licensed clinical social workers. And I think what sets social workers apart from other mental health professionals and other tracks that you can go in terms of studying and learning is this idea of person and environment. And what that framework really talks about is how a person is both influenced by their environment and how they also influence their environment. So I think along with holistic approach to working with clients, it's how everything is interconnected. And if you think of two young kids growing up in different environments, those environments are going to shape them differently, the way that they think, the way that they act, the way that their interests and careers take them.
Like, can you give some examples of what this would look like in terms of like applied to someone's life? So person and environment theory applied in the real world.
Right. So when you think about person and environment theory, you're really understanding how the environment has shaped that individual and how then through, advocacy and empowerment, that person can then shape their environment. So when I think about, my own life experience, I have a 5.5-year-old, and she was born in Denver, and we lived in downtown Denver for the first 4 years of her life. And so things like diversity of people that she was exposed to, diversity of beliefs that she was exposed to, different from maybe a 4-year-old who grew up in the suburbs of Denver or even in rural Colorado. So that those environments are going to shape the way that you believe certain things, your cultural experiences, the types of people you're around. That's more of that macro level environment. Your neighborhood can shape you. Your community organizations that you're a part of, if you're part of religious organizations, or if you go to the YMCA, if you go to a public school versus a private school, the culture of those environments are going to shape you as a person. Your family environment is going to shape you as a person. So if your family environment values holistic health and healing, you might go to yoga at 4 years old, which is my daughter's experience. She loves going to yoga on Saturday mornings, versus somebody who maybe lives in a family environment that values going to church. And so those environments are going to shape those individuals differently.
Totally. And how does this come up in your work with clients? And like, how do you are you helping them to become aware and then transform their environment? Or just like, how does this fit into your therapy practice?
Yeah, so I think it is just in terms of understanding somebody's story. We're really examining what were the environmental influences on who they are, what they believe, and does that work for them now? Are those values, are those cultural expectations and norms working for them? And if not, how do we start to shift that? And maybe it's about going, I think that for a lot of our young adult clients, so often the cultural norm and expectation is they're going to go out drinking on a Saturday night. And maybe they come from a family with alcoholic tendencies, and maybe their parents struggled with alcoholism. And so my client doesn't want to put herself in an environment because she's more susceptible to that kind of thing. And so now she's wondering, well, if all my friends are going out for drinks on Saturday night, how do I choose the environment that's going to help support me and what I'm working on? And so that may mean getting creative around, well, how do we start a book club? How do we go find a yoga class on a Saturday night that's going to feel fun for you because you're valuing these different things compared to maybe what your friends are valuing?
So I'm hearing it's using environment for self-awareness, and then also empowering the individual to use their empowerment and their life choices to create the environment that they need to thrive.
Yes. And it's that interconnectedness, right? That your environment shapes you, and then you can also shape your environment. And so I think about that as we talked about motherhood earlier. And so often the moms who are coming into our practice are wanting to do things differently in their homes. They're wanting to parent differently than they were parented. They don't want to raise people pleasers because they, in fact, were raised that way. And so the environment that shaped them as a young kid, it takes a lot of work to be, in pop culture, we call that like a cycle breaker, right? And so that mom coming in is saying, these younger versions of me really learned how to please others, how to be hypervigilant, how to be really aware of how my parents were feeling. And I don't want that for my kids. And so how do I shape my environment, my parenting differently to help empower my kid to feel like they can express their feelings, that they can advocate for themselves, that we know how to repair in our family. And so that I think that it can just look so many different ways.
It's a really great conscious conversation to be having, just to put the emphasis on therapy, because there aren't as many. They do exist, but for those wanting to seek more awareness to their environment, to creating change in their life, therapy or having a counselor or a coach, some support system is such a safe place to start unlearning and relearning exactly what you need.
Absolutely. Because you don't need to do it by yourself. In fact, like we can't, right?
No, you really can't.
Yeah.
So tell us about Mothers in the Making. We know you have a few group programs. Let's start with that one.
Yes. So we have 2 really exciting motherhood wellness groups coming up in the winter. So starting in January on Thursdays, we'll be supporting mothers who are either currently pregnant or are contemplating pregnancy. And so I think there is this big question about identity, because it is a huge identity change, value systems change. Where you're spending your time, speaking to environments, where you're spending your time changes, who you're spending your time with changes. And I think women more and more are feeling empowered to have those conversations before we just go on the automatic treadmill of, well, we get married and we have babies. Right. And so having a space to talk about, the world feels like a shit show. Like things feel like they're on fire. And do I want to bring a baby? Do I want to bring another human into the world when I have big concerns about, the planet? And, I think it speaks so much to what you all are talking about in terms of sustainable living. Like, how do we create sustainable homes and families and environments when climate change and all the things that we're concerned about are happening around us? And how do I feel good and empowered and confident to make that choice? And so really that Mothers in the Making is a group. It's a safe place to talk with other women who are contemplating pregnancy or are already pregnant and grappling with some of the concepts we were just speaking about. Like, I was raised in an abusive home and I don't want to raise my child in an abusive home. And so how do I grapple with, this was my model, this was the environment I was raised in, how do I create something different?
Yeah. I feel like so much of, because I've been doing a lot of self-help reading and books, and I'm very reflective on my own experiences. And I definitely agree that there are things that I don't want to necessarily trickle down when I have kids someday. How do you take a group holistic approach when you do have so many different experiences coming into a group environment like that?
I think that's what can be so powerful in a group environment, is you're hearing from other people's experiences and you're learning about how maybe somebody who hasn't, started the pregnancy journey is listening to somebody who is currently pregnant saying, I grappled with that as well. And here's how I came to find acceptance or peace with my decision, and how I really feel empowered now going down the path of motherhood. because we can do so much reading on our own and we can be behind our screens, which is very helpful. I think that there's definitely a time and a place for that kind of self-help, internal introspective reflection. And then there's also something so powerful with being in a group of people who are going through the same thing you are.
I too, in my experience, what I've seen, what I have also experienced, and then I had the pleasure of being a stepmom even for 5 years. And it is so easy to isolate yourself as someone who now has different responsibilities in the world. And that isolation is what furthers the fear, furthers the anxiety, furthers the unknown. So it's just gathering in the group of other women going through the same journey or something similar could potentially be what drives more women to desire to have more children. So when I think of the conversation of where's the world going, do I want to bring a baby into this world, or that is such a big topic for so many people. And then I have to think about our parents. I find every generation has to have some dose of that same conversation. And part of furthering our population and species is to continue to reproduce. So how powerful is it that women get together and have like a safe place to discuss these things that are probably in everyone's mind at some capacity, but don't often get to truly share and open up about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that, we used to live in communities in villages, and we would raise each other's babies, and we don't do that anymore. And so this is just our small way at Discover Peace Within to helping create a little village.
Yeah, I love that so much. So you've got Mothers in the Making as one of the groups, and then another group, Rediscovering You, Embracing Life Beyond Baby. Can you tell us more about what that one is going to focus on?
So Rediscover You, Embracing Life Beyond Baby is for our moms who have given birth in the last, I would say, year to 18 months. We definitely want to capture moms who have made it out of the 4th trimester. So your baby's sleeping a little bit more, you're feeling a little more confident in, diaper changes and getting feeding down. But I would say for anyone who's had a baby in the last year to year and a half, it's about that identity. It's about rediscovering who you are now with this new part of yourself as mom, as a mother, because it can kind of knock you on your socks. I remember my own experience. I was probably 5 months postpartum and thinking like, I will never go to brunch again. Like, I'm never going to be able to sleep in. I'm never going to go to brunch with my girlfriends ever again. And you just sort of like lose a part of yourself in those early years, because so much of you goes to helping raise, this tiny little human. You will go to brunch again, I promise.
So good.
So it is about just sort of how do we integrate this new part of you.
There's opportunity too, especially I knew motherhood, there's a lot going on, especially if you're a first-time mother. There's routines, habits, timing just looks so different. Responsibility changes depending on what your home life looks like. And then there's this notion of uplifting women after they've had children to continue taking care of themselves, because that translates to the kids, and that's the energy that feels good when you bring into the home. And that's maybe even beyond infancy and toddler years is what's going to drive the community of the family forward, is when the mom is taking care of herself. And it's a lot easier to do when they have other women that are working on themselves as well.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's like that whole, I use this analogy a lot with especially new moms who, mom guilt is such a thing, right? They feel so guilty. I can't, take time for myself. I can't come to therapy. I can't make it to a group. I need to make sure that I'm there with the baby. Or what if, there are just 10,000 reasons why we shouldn't be taking care of ourselves. And I think that extends to women, in general. But I talk to my clients a lot about, you've got to put your oxygen mask on first, when you're on an airplane, no matter how little your kid is sitting next to you, that flight attendant is going to tell you, you got to put your oxygen mask on first.
That's such a powerful analogy. One that we probably all can relate to. So how about generalized women, mothers? How can we help ourselves decrease stress, anxiety, depression, things that just come along in transformation and change throughout our lives?
Well, I think, talking about connection. So I would say everybody should go find a therapist. And it doesn't even need to be with Discover Peace Within, but find a therapist that feels like a good fit. Number one. And
how do you know? Sorry.
How do you know?
How do you know if it's a good fit?
That's a really good question. I think that I encourage clients to kind of interview their therapist like you would. I don't know. I've never done speed dating, but I have like an understanding of what that could be like, where you're just going around and you're talking to people and there's a chemistry. There is like this sort of like, what does your body feel like when you are speaking to a therapist, understanding what their specialty is. And at Discover Peace Within, we specialize in grief and loss, in life transition and change. We specialize in parenthood and the journey to motherhood. And so if you're looking for those things, you're going to want to find a therapist who specializes in those things. If you're wanting to work on substance abuse, you probably want to go find a therapist who has specialized certifications in substance abuse. So I would say education and specialty. And then I would say, like, what does it feel like? Do you feel the warmth? Do you feel safe? Do you feel like this is a person that you could share your deepest, darkest, thoughts and feelings with? And also that you feel like this person could celebrate your wins, and that can be there to encourage you and to sort of honor your growth as well.
That's powerful.
Listen
Thank
to
you.
your body. Yeah.
So you're starting with finding a therapist, then what else can they do?
Yeah. So I'm also going to encourage you to find your supports. So connection, and that's one of our values at Discover Peace Within is connection. Who are the people in your life that help lift you up, help you feel safe to crumble, and will also, again, kind of encourage your growth and your success and celebrate your wins with you. So whether that's friends, family, partnership, community in some way at work, or finding a group, an organization that you feel like you can be a part of, go and find your supports. I'm going to say movement. And I think that that's because we're thinking about holistic health and healing. So we're not just talking about our mind. And I don't know if you're recording this on camera, but like, it's not just from your neck up. Your body is neck down as well. And so what are the things that you're doing to enjoy movement?
It's powerful.
That helps you feel good in your body.
So it sounds like you're applying therapy and a little bit of coaching as well, like tasking your clients to go out and truly create change in between appointments.
Yes, so we do give homework.
Yeah, not all therapy gives, and that's okay. Yeah. There's different flavors for different people, and there's a really powerful opportunity when you take what you have maybe realized, your learnings, your tasks, and you go out and apply that in between appointments so that you can see yourself getting better.
That's where the real work happens, right? And you're able to feel more confident and ready and willing to make those changes when you have the safe and supportive and nurturing relationship with your therapist. So absolutely. That's where the real work happens, is in between your appointments.
100%. What strategies or tactics do you have for improving depressive symptoms?
So depressive symptoms in general,
or creating, maybe just creating uplifting environments. Maybe if you're leaning into more of the depression side of things.
And with that question too, maybe like, is depression or anxiety, or like what are things that you're seeing most common? I know we hear like postpartum depression is like a big conversation around motherhood. So yeah, like how do you support people with that specifically, or what do you see?
Yeah, well, and are you wondering just strategies in general, or more based in your environment?
Any and all, yeah.
So I would say, again, I'm going back to talking things out, and we're going to encourage you to move your body. So it's getting out of the house, especially if we're talking about depression, that self-isolation, that holding in, that sort of like withdrawal we're really going to encourage our clients to come to therapy in person if they can, to move their bodies in some way. And that doesn't need to be like a 60-minute cardio workout at the gym. That can mean like a walk around your block. And that can be really just as powerful as a 90-minute hot yoga class, right? So moving your body and getting out of the house. I would say reaching out to your supports and connection is a big thing for depression. I think if we're talking more anxiety and more of that like uplifted energy, we're going to talk more about grounding. So being outside, putting your feet in the earth, doing breathing exercises, and we will do those in session with clients. And then we'll talk a lot about sort of like the 5 senses. And I'm sure you all have heard that strategy before, but we're talking about 5 things we can see, 4 things we can touch, 3 things we can smell, 2 things we can taste. And oh my God, I'm blanking. Oh, here. Thank you.
And something that you can hear.
Yeah.
So powerful.
Yeah, right.
Oh, that's so good. And now what about our environment? Let's talk a little
Yeah.
bit about creating a stress-free environment.
And especially as a new mom, I'm remembering just like the piles of laundry that would just live on my couch, and it would make me feel so anxious and overwhelmed. And so when we're thinking about a person in their environment, we can talk about what does your home environment look like. And I think that that's so much of what you all do and talk about. And so finding small ways that you can create peace in your actual home environment is going to go a long way to support your mental health.
We say non-toxic living, and we often, when we get to our last segment, we'll talk about, non-toxic swaps that we're making, and to emphasize that non-toxic living is also like not mental toxicity and emotional toxicity
and relational toxicity. Yeah.
So it's your place of grounding. It's your place of safety and your home. So there's different levels of that. You could clear out the mold in your house, but if you have an abusive relationship, your home's still not a safe place.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love your example of like the laundry, or like to me, where my mind goes with that is like creating lifestyle systems and like routines around creating a safe environment. Like even, talking about swapping things out, or even swapping a toxic person out, or whatever is in the home. Like systems for me have been so grounding as someone with anxiety to like keep it moving in a healthy place. And then like autonomy builds from that. And like, I'm creating this reality that I want. So yeah, I love the connection there of like your environment does impact everything that's going on in your mental space.
Yeah. And that you can then impact your environment by creating these systems. So when I'm thinking about the laundry, right, I'm thinking about how am I going to tackle this laundry a little bit at a time. And I think especially for my clients with ADHD and often get that overwhelm with huge tasks, if we can chunk it out in smaller bits, it can often feel much more accessible.
My college boyfriend's mother used to say, if you're having a hard day mentally, go clean your car.
Yeah.
And that was her piece of advice. She's like, if you're having a hard day, go clean your car. And it works. Just get something externally organized. It translates right energetically.
Yes. I cannot leave the dishes in the sink for too long. And so that's going to help. I can't do anything until those dishes are done, because it is going to allow me to have mental and emotional clarity as well.
Yeah. So good. And like, I would assume that regrounding in some of those routines, when we are talking specifically about motherhood, like before and after baby, those are the same. So does that help? Do you recommend that for people to kind of get back into some of that identity, or how do those lifestyle systems, I guess, integrate with new identity as well?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think in those when I spoke about like the 4th trimester, like I'm not expecting new moms to do any of those organizational things around the house, because your sole focus is on taking care of your like sleep and basic needs. Yes. And right, exactly. Like taking care of that baby and bonding with your baby and sleeping. But you have a community, and that's where your community of supports come in, and that you can task them with doing the laundry. You can task your mother-in-law to do the dishes, and saying, hey, like this is something that'll really help me feel more at ease in the home, is if you can, right, partner, take care of the laundry, and making sure that those pieces are at the forefront of what you're asking for, right? Because so often as women, we're afraid to ask for help because we feel like we're supposed to do it all, and we're supposed to have it all done yesterday. And if we don't, we're a failure. And this is the time to ask for help.
What an opportunity as well, specifically in partnership, when you are able to clearly communicate your needs. Your partner wants to support you. I can't speak for men, but I can only imagine that they want to be a part of that process as much as we do.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're taking care of the baby and they fold the socks, the energy is going to be even better between the couple and in the home for the child.
Yes, and that's where our couples therapy really comes at play. Is our couples therapist specializes in supporting new parents and through that transition of parenthood, and making sure that communication is strong and the relationship is still, being tended to, and helping empower the partner to say, what's my role here and how can I make sure that I'm taking care of my family and taking care of the home and taking care of those pieces.
Good. So what about your personal journey? We'll think health, entrepreneurship. Tell us a little bit about how it's been for you, building Discover Peace Within, creating your team, and where you started to where you are now.
Yeah, well, I guess I was like born a therapist based on my own family experiences, my family of origin, and my childhood story. I was probably a therapist like starting at age 3 or 4. So I think that, over the course of my young adulthood, I knew that social work was where I was meant to be because of its emphasis on social justice, its emphasis on person and environment, its emphasis on community organizing. For a long time, I thought I was going to be a community organizer for environmental justice nonprofits because of that impact of the environment and how the environment impacts you as a person. So in social work, you have to earn hours to get your license. And so earning your hours means you provide therapy. And that's then sort of how I came back to that. Part of myself is gaining my hours in community mental health. And I worked for a long time with children and families. And then I knew as soon as my husband and I were talking about starting our own family, that I wouldn't be able to be the type of mom I wanted to be if I was supporting kids with a lot of trauma all day at work. And so I moved into supporting adults, and I moved into private practice. And I started my private practice in August of 2018. And then a week later, we found out we were pregnant. So I was growing a human and growing a business like all at the same time. So that was really interesting and
an opportunity.
Yes, a lot of growth at that stage of my life. And it wasn't until the pandemic where I really felt like there's so much isolation and loneliness here working remotely and working with such intense trauma at that time in 2020 and 2021 with a 1-year-old at home. COVID happened 3 weeks before our daughter turned 1. And it was, I was just like leaving the phase of postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety haze. And then all of a sudden here we are in COVID times and everybody's scared.
Everybody needs a therapist.
And everybody needs a therapist. And I'm like, I guess I'm that person. So in the fall of 2021, I brought on my first team member and brought on a therapist to join me in Discover Peace Within, because I didn't want to do it alone anymore. I needed that connection. And now we're a team of 7. And yeah, I am so lucky and grateful every day. I think about that these very talented therapists have joined me in this work.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
To drive forward your message as well, right? So you guys are all similar in the sense of supporting mothers, supporting young adulthood, life transitions. You had your personal mission, and now it's being shared amongst the group. So that's really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
What's next for Discover Peace Within in 2025? What's on the horizon for you guys? I know you have those 2 groups, but yeah, what else are you guys tapping into? Yeah,
I would say more connection. I think especially after talking about COVID and about the isolation of the pandemic and trying to come back to recalibrate, I think we need more connection. So offering more groups, offering more in-person opportunities. That's one of the things I think is really unique about our practice is we really prioritize being in person. And so we have a therapist on our team in our office every day of the week offering in-person support. And so it's just more of that, more connection, more support. And yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you.
We're going to jump into our monthly motivation segment. But before we do you have any final advice for young women struggling, with identity, whether it is related to motherhood or not? Just general advice for, young women that might be listening to this.
You're worth it.
Mm.
You're worth it. And whatever that means to you, however you make sense of that, if that means a career change, if that means a relationship change, if that means following your own intuitive heart, we were talking about that earlier before we started recording. It's just really like leaning in and listening in and getting curious about your own experience, and you're worth time and space exploring what that is and what that means for you, and moving in the direction of what's important to you.
That's so powerful.
So beautiful.
All right, so we love this segment. What is one invigorating conversation that you've had recently?
Well, I hope it's okay to kind of piggyback off of Makayla. You spoke about Inside Out earlier.
Yeah.
So I have a 5.5-year-old, and we were talking about Inside Out the other day because we finally watched Inside Out 2, which I highly recommend. Speaking of anxiety. Wow. So good. Haley, have you seen it?
I've seen the first one,
Okay.
but not the second.
Okay.
It was great. They
Yes.
bring out anxiety. And
Yeah.
It's just real.
It is so real.
Okay,
My husband had to turn it off within like 5 minutes. He's like, the anxiety is giving me anxiety. But it has allowed us as a family to talk about feelings so much more in a concrete way. For 5.5-year-olds, they're still such abstract creative thinkers. And so the other day we were running late to get to school on time, and we're stopped in our tracks, and my daughter said, "Mom, I'm feeling sadness and anger." And I'm like, this is so empowering to me that you are 5.5 and you can identify. And I know that you're seeing those characters in your brain as you're describing how you feel internally to me. And it felt so, it just really, I felt so uplifted and empowered. And it gave me so much hope for the future of our society. Yeah, that these young kids have, and Makayla, like you were saying earlier, have movies, have cultural references to talk about their internal experience.
It's a learning. First, it's awareness of emotion for her age. That's so beautiful. And then as she grows up, it's the learning that you are also not your emotion.
Yes.
So that comes later on, which is such a beautiful thing to watch bloom in her. So
yeah. And I'm
feeling this.
Yes.
I'm not this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would say that we're working on that with our 25-year-old clients.
Yeah.
Like our 35-year-old
Oh,
clients
yeah.
of like, yeah, like what is the emotion? And so often our clients are like, I don't even know what I'm feeling. So it's getting curious and then naming that.
So powerful.
Mhm.
I love that. Makayla, what about you? An invigorating conversation?
Well, you and I had we had a really long chat yesterday, so I'll share just a little insight, peel back the curtain for our audience. So I think the biggest one is when you create, and it even piggybacks on before we started this recording with Ilene, when you have these dreams or goals for your future, you really don't know how you're going to get there. Even if you create a plan, there's such a low chance it will go exactly how you planned. So it's about exploring what you want. At least what I took from that conversation is know your worth, know what you want, and then completely detach from the process and the outcome, right? One of my favorite mentors says that the journey is from when you set your goal between now and you getting your goal, like that's life. And that's what you get to enjoy. So I really enjoyed just revisiting that perspective with you yesterday.
I'm going to use that as my invigorating conversation as well, because we were diving into a lot of different realms, Makayla and I feel like we have very similar brains, and that like we can just like talk about different things and let it evolve, which is so fun. And one of the topics that we landed on also was just feminine and masculine energy in our work, like daily work. And so both of us are trying to step into more of like creation and feminine energy. And for myself specifically, masculine tasks are what I go to feel safe in my body, the routine, the analytical, the do this and then this will happen. And the feminine is like such the opposite of that, of like the letting go and the feeling and trusting the process. And just talking about that. And then today, and honestly this weekend, I'm probably going to be sitting with that a little bit more and fully integrating that into what that means for my, I try to iterate and have smaller sprints that I do in my work so that I'm getting things done and checking things off my list. So always iterating and finding what is the highest priority. So that's something I'll be integrating with that. What is something that you're currently reading, Ilene, or something that you've read recently in terms of a book, audiobook, anything like that?
Yeah. Right now I'm reading Get Good with Money Working on my relationship with money has been such a tremendous, like, empowering and also like very insightful journey that I've gone, under in the last, I would say, like 5 or so years. So Get Good with Money. I'm forgetting the author's name, but I can send it to you.
Yeah, we'll link it in the show notes.
Yeah. But it is by her Instagram handle, I think, is called The Budgetista. And she breaks down like step by step, because I think money is one of those topics that can get so overwhelming and there's so much.
It's like motherhood.
Yeah. It's like,
we just don't want to talk about it.
right. Yeah. Mental health. We don't want to talk about it. Money. Let's not talk about it. But she breaks it down in such concrete, accessible language and steps. And so I'm very jazzed about Get Good with Money.
I love that. I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah, same.
What about you, Haley?
I have one book that I want to mention that kind of piggybacks off of our invigorating conversation. Makayla had mentioned this to me yesterday. It's called The Gap and the Gain. Would you tell everyone the synopsis of the book really quick?
Oh,
Because it's really good. It's really good.
The Gap and the Gain by Benjamin Hardy. It's totally worth the read. It's just high level, how you measure your growth in your life. So you have two choices. You can look back. Well, what we fall to more often than not is looking forward into the future, seeing that we're not there yet. We're so much further than where we think we should be. And that's what they call the gap. So we're measuring ourselves to a future version of ourselves that we have not yet achieved, versus looking back at your past, recognizing where you are now and seeing all of the growth along the way. So that would be considered the gain. So it's just an opportunity when you're starting to measure yourself. Are you measuring yourself in the gap, or are you measuring yourself in the game?
I love that. And I think, Haley, you asked a question earlier of like what makes a good fit as a therapist.
Yes.
And I think a therapist is going to help a client recognize all that they've gained.
So good.
Mhm.
Love that.
Yeah, so that book was on the top of my mind that I wanted to share just as we're talking about all these topics. One book that I am personally reading is called on audio is It's on Me, Accept Hard Truths, Discover Yourself and Change Your Life by Sarah Kubrick, the millennial therapist. So she has given a lot of like very tangible like examples, and she just is very direct and concise and clear kind of about, like how to accept these hard truths, or rewriting narratives that we've been told, or just kind of shining a light on that part of yourself that you do push away, and that you what is behind that. So it's been helpful to have kind of a tangible aspect of that for me to listen to. I really like audiobooks for things like that, to be able to kind of like sit in the car, pause it, contemplate for a minute. Makayla, what book are you reading right now?
Oh my gosh, we can't drive together. I put my audiobooks on like 2 times speed.
That may drive Haley's anxiety. Yeah.
But it's that's funny. I am listening to actually another book by Benjamin Hardy. I recommend any one of his books. It's called Slipstream Time Hacking. So it's just a really, really refreshing way to view time, how you can kind of turn months into weeks into days, days into hours, and just the way that we structure our time and how we prioritize things to get further faster. So super cool.
All right, here's our non-toxic swap question. So this can be physical, mental, whatever you want to say. But the question is, what is one non-toxic swap you've recently made, you're currently working on, or you're excited to make?
Well, I love how you drew the connection between non-toxic and in terms of relationships. And I would say like boundary work is a huge area where we can create some non-toxicity in our lives. And it's about learning how to say yes to things we really mean yes to, and learning how to say no, and feeling that permission and the strength to say no to the things that we need to say no to. So I hadn't thought about it in that perspective until you said that. So I think that's really profound. But I'm thinking about products in my home. I have been on that road for a really long time.
It takes a while.
It does take a while. And I think like one thing at a time is really important when you're thinking about making like a lifestyle change. So I think one thing that I feel really good about is like getting rid of like all like the plastics in our like Tupperware, like
Yes,
food storage
For sure.
plastics is something that I'm like, okay, that's really what I want to tackle. We already have a lot of glass containers, but I think we still have, like Chinese food takeout,
Yeah.
those kind of leftover plastic
Mhm.
things where I'm like, let's just get rid of that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
true.
Recycle.
Yep.
Send
Recycle
it
that.
back.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
And if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, that doesn't really matter, it really does, though.
Mhm.
Like plastic out of everything in the food storage specifically is one that is going to be at the higher point of our list. So I love that you're making that swap.
And Makayla, it makes me think of like when you were speaking like culturally and like sort of generationally speaking, when I think about like how my mom still will microwave her food in
I
her
know.
plastic container. I'm like,
I know.
Mom,
I know.
please
I
stop.
know.
And then
I
there's
know.
and you have to have that awareness of they're doing the best they can.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that this is across the board culturally, not just in mental health, but just the evolution of humanity. That was not considered a bad thing.
Mhm.
And when you've been doing anything for years, that accepting that what you've been doing may not be the best choice, that's not always easy.
Right. And that we don't know what we don't know, and that we're
Exactly.
always finding out new things.
sure.
Like my husband, for
Yeah.
example, just talked about the black plastics in
Mm.
particular, or
Mm.
now they're finding out are even worse.
Say
Okay.
more.
I don't know, but I can find whatever
Yeah.
article he was
The
reading.
black
The black
plastics.
plastics. So yeah.
This topic and why we're so passionate about starting a podcast centered around non-toxic living is because once you start learning, it feels like a rabbit hole or it's like Pandora's box
Yes.
of things. It can be so overwhelming at first because at least my experience was I started to kind of look more into holistic health in general. And I'm like, oh my God, everything is bad.
Yeah.
Walking outside your
Yeah.
front door is killing you. And so it's not about making all the changes at once. It's just a small impact of maybe it's you change nothing, but you start using glass containers, or maybe when you take out home, because the restaurant, which I do see restaurants definitely turning around, especially here in Denver with the materials that they use, but maybe it's just pouring your leftovers out on a plate before you put it in the microwave, right?
Yeah.
So it's just these small things that make an impact over time because our bodies are designed to take care of environmental toxins.
Yes.
They are, but with cancer on the rise, especially here in our country, it's that they can't handle an excessive amount.
Yes,
Yeah.
the intensity.
Anytime we can decrease the amount of toxins we're putting in our body is great. What about you, Haley? What are you doing?
I am going to go a little bit more emotional with this one. Something that I am healing is toxic spending. And I've created a whole system in this app called Notion where I have like a shopping cart now. And so I can save anything from anywhere. And I have this central cart where I have basically different fields where it's like, how much do I want to save for this item? And then where am I currently at with my savings? So I'm always prepared financially for that purchase before it's even been made. So definitely healing like shopping addictions and things like that, where like I found value and worth in buying things and having more things, which just is part of the rewiring process and choosing minimalism and choosing to have less. And I'm finding that it's a lot more rewarding to be prepared financially for things and to be really excited about the things that I am choosing to invest in. Makayla, what about you?
Oh, an older swap that I made that I think is important, so easy, is all of my shower soaps. So my shampoo and my body wash. There's a lot of brands that are great, but the one that I've most recently been using is Native. Started with their deodorant. They were just a deodorant company. Great stuff. And now that they make body wash and shampoo and conditioner. So all the ingredients are on the back. They're all natural. There's a pretty high, if you do have any of the apps where you can like test the chemicals, grade the product, it's got a pretty high rating as far as health consciousness. So yeah, swapped out my body wash. I would even say too, when you're working on these swaps, one of my mentors in the non-toxic living space just simply coaches to swap when you run out. Don't go buy new things. Just use it, and then when you go to buy something new, buy a better brand.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Ilene,
thank
for
you.
your time, for sharing your heart, your mission with our listeners. And where can they find you?
They can find us online at discoverpeacewithin.com. We're the same Instagram handle, Discover Peace Within. And we love to be a support to your listeners. Thank you so much for having me today.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ilene, for coming on the podcast today. If you were listening to this episode, let us know in the comments or by emailing us. What did you learn? What questions do you still have for Ilene? And connect with us so we can connect you with Ilene and her team at Discover Peace Within. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Soulful Sustainable Living with Haley and Makayla. We're so grateful you're here and would love to hear what you learned from this episode and any questions you still have. Please share your feedback with us in the comments or via email. You can connect with us on Instagram at Soulful Sustainable Living or email us at info@soulfulsustainableliving.com. You can find Makayla at Move with Makayla and Haley at Haley Matchett, MATCHETTE on Instagram. We appreciate you. Take care of yourself today. Sending love and peace to you always.